On a sunny Saturday morning, June 28, 2025, in the upscale neighborhood of Maple Grove Estates in Raleigh, North Carolina, Chief of Police Laura Michelle Evans was enjoying a rare day off. At 45, Laura was a seasoned law enforcement officer, appointed as Raleigh's police chief in 2023 after a 20-year career that began as a patrol officer and climbed through the ranks. She lived in Maple Grove with her husband, David, a civil engineer, and their 12-year-old daughter, Emily. Their two-story colonial home was well-maintained, but Laura's demanding job left little time for the minutiae of suburban life. That morning, she was in sweatpants and a t-shirt, sipping coffee and reviewing emails on her laptop, determined to keep the day free of work. Maple Grove Estates was known for its pristine lawns, uniform mailboxes, and a homeowners association that enforced its rules with zeal. The HOA president, Karen Louise Mitchell, a 57-year-old former school administrator, was the neighborhood's self-appointed guardian. Karen was meticulous, her daily walks armed with a notebook where she jotted down infractions: a fence painted the wrong shade, a car parked too long on the street, or a shrub trimmed improperly. To her, the HOA covenants were the law, and she saw it as her duty to uphold them. That morning, Karen noticed a minor issue at the Evans residence. A small pile of leaves had accumulated in the corner of their front yard, likely blown there by a recent storm. To Karen, this was a violation of Section 3.1 of the HOA rules, which required yards to be kept clean and free of debris. She decided to address it immediately. She rang the doorbell at 9:15 a.m., expecting Laura to answer promptly. When no one came to the door after 2 rings, Karen's irritation grew. She knocked sharply, then rang the bell again, her notebook clutched tightly. Laura, inside, heard the doorbell but ignored it. She was in the middle of an email from the mayor's office about a community policing initiative and assumed the visitor was a delivery driver or a neighbor dropping by unannounced. David was at Emily's soccer practice, and Laura wasn't expecting anyone. After the 3rd ring, she glanced at her security camera feed on her phone and saw Karen standing on the porch, her expression stern. Laura sighed. She'd dealt with Karen before, over a basketball hoop left out overnight, a holiday wreath deemed too large, and a recycling bin placed curbside an hour too early. She decided to let it go, hoping Karen would leave. Karen, however, was not one to be ignored. She knocked again, louder, then called out, "I know you're in there. This is about an HOA violation." When no response came, she pulled out her phone and dialed 911. "I need an officer at 1423 Maple Grove Lane," she said. "A resident is refusing to address a violation and ignoring my attempts to communicate. This is creating a disturbance in the neighborhood." The 911 dispatcher, a seasoned operator named Jessica Hayes, took the call. "Ma'am, can you clarify the nature of the disturbance?" she asked. "The homeowner is ignoring me," Karen said, her voice sharp. "Their yard is in violation of HOA rules, and they're refusing to open the door. This is unacceptable behavior, and I need police assistance." Jessica, trained to prioritize calls, noted the address and recognized it immediately. It was the home of Chief Laura Evans, her boss. She suppressed a chuckle and said, "Ma'am, I'll send an officer, but I need to confirm. Are you saying this is an emergency?" "It's an emergency for our community standards," Karen replied. "I'm the HOA president, and I have the right to enforce our rules." Jessica dispatched Officer Daniel Nguyen, a 5-year veteran of the Raleigh Police Department, to the scene. She also sent a quick text to Laura. "Chief, HOA lady called 911 about leaves in your yard. Officer Nguyen en route. Thought you'd want a heads up." Laura read the text and shook her head, a mix of amusement and exasperation crossing her face. She texted back, "Thanks, Jess. I'll handle it." She set her laptop aside and waited, knowing this was about to get interesting. Karen, meanwhile, stood on the sidewalk, arms crossed, her notebook now tucked into her purse. She was confident the police would back her up. In her mind, Laura's refusal to answer the door was not just rudeness, but a challenge to her authority as HOA president. She'd had run-ins with other neighbors, issuing fines for minor infractions, and she prided herself on keeping Maple Grove presentable. The Evans family, she felt, had been particularly uncooperative, often dismissing her notices with polite but firm rejections. Officer Nguyen arrived 12 minutes later, pulling his cruiser into the cul-de-sac. He was 30, professional, and known for his calm demeanor. He recognized Laura's address from department briefings and had a hunch this call was going to be unusual. He stepped out, adjusted his duty belt, and approached Karen, who was waiting with a triumphant expression. "Officer, thank you for coming," Karen said. "This resident is ignoring a clear HOA violation, leaves in their yard, and refusing to discuss it. I knocked multiple times, and they won't open the door. This is a breach of community standards, and I need your assistance." Nguyen nodded, his face neutral. "Ma'am, let me clarify. You called 911 because of leaves in someone's yard." "And their refusal to engage," Karen added. "It's disrespectful and disruptive. I'm within my rights to demand compliance." Before Nguyen could respond, the front door opened, and Laura stepped onto the porch. She was still in her sweatpants, her hair in a loose ponytail, but her posture carried the quiet authority of someone used to command. "Morning, Daniel," she said, nodding to Nguyen. "Karen, what's this about?" Karen's eyes narrowed. "You know exactly what this is about," she said. "Your yard is a mess, and you ignored my attempts to address it. I had to call the police because you're causing a disturbance." Laura raised an eyebrow. "A disturbance? I was working inside my own home. You're the one banging on my door and calling 911 over a few leaves." Nguyen cleared his throat, stepping between them. "Chief, Mrs. Mitchell reported a violation and says you refuse to respond. I'm just here to sort this out." "Chief," Karen repeated, her voice faltering. She looked from Nguyen to Laura, her confidence wavering. "What do you mean, Chief?" Laura crossed her arms. "I'm Laura Evans, Raleigh's chief of police. You called my department because I didn't answer my door fast enough for you. That's not a police matter, Karen." Karen's face flushed, but she pressed on. "I don't care who you are," she said, though her tone was less certain. "The HOA rules apply to everyone. Your yard is in violation, and your behavior is unacceptable." Nguyen, struggling to keep a straight face, turned to Karen. "Ma'am, HOA rules aren't enforceable by the police. This is a civil matter, and calling 911 for leaves isn't an appropriate use of emergency services." Karen bristled. "I'm the HOA president. I have the authority to maintain our community standards. If she won't comply, I'll escalate this to the board and issue a fine." Laura stepped closer, her voice calm but firm. "Karen, you're on my property, and you're wasting my officer's time. The leaves will be cleaned up when I get to it. You don't get to demand I open my door, and you definitely don't get to call 911 over this. If you keep this up, we can discuss harassment." Karen opened her mouth to argue, but Nguyen raised a hand. "Ma'am, I suggest you take this up with the HOA board if you feel it's necessary. But right now, you need to leave the chief's property." Karen hesitated, her eyes darting between Laura and Nguyen. A small crowd of neighbors had gathered, drawn by the police cruiser. One, Sarah Patel, a nurse who lived 2 houses down, called out, "Karen, give it a rest. It's just leaves." The other neighbors murmured in agreement, some shaking their heads. Karen, sensing the tide turning, clutched her purse tighter. "This isn't over," she said. "The board will hear about this." "I'm sure they will," Laura said. "But you might want to read the city ordinances first. False 911 calls can carry penalties." Nguyen escorted Karen to her car, a silver sedan parked across the street. He advised her to avoid further calls unless there was a genuine emergency. Karen drove off, her face a mix of embarrassment and defiance. Laura thanked Nguyen, who grinned and said, "Chief, I'm putting this in my report as the highlight of my week." He returned to his cruiser, and Laura went back inside, shaking her head. She texted David. "HOA Karen called 911 because I didn't answer the door. All good now." David replied with a string of laughing emojis. "You should have flashed your badge," he wrote. The incident quickly became neighborhood gossip. Sarah Patel posted about it in the Maple Grove community group chat, and by evening, residents were sharing memes about Karen versus the chief. Some defended Karen, arguing she was just trying to keep the neighborhood tidy, but most found her actions absurd. At the next HOA meeting, Karen faced scrutiny from the board, who questioned her judgment in calling the police. She insisted she was protecting the community, but several members suggested she step down, citing her tendency to escalate minor issues. Laura, unfazed, continued her work as chief, overseeing a department of 900 officers and navigating challenges from budget cuts to community outreach. She cleaned up the leaves that afternoon, more to avoid further drama than to appease Karen. The incident became a story she shared with her officers during training, using it as an example of how to handle frivolous 911 calls with patience and professionalism. Karen, meanwhile, toned down her patrols, her authority diminished by the public embarrassment. The neighborhood settled back into its routine, but the story of the HOA president who called the cops on the police chief lingered, a reminder that power, whether from a badge or a clipboard, is best wielded with humility and sense.